Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see that. Well, now that I got your attention, we talked about in the last video, we got league winners and league losers. We're going to go over today absolute red flag running backs that you do not want to be taking this year in fantasy. If you're new to the channel and you like fantasy football content, feel free to subscribe. I'll give you a couple seconds to do so, don't worry. Alright, cool. Now let's get the intro going. First running back that is a red flag this year in 2024 is none other than the Cleveland Browns running back, Nick Chubb. Yes, I saw the video of him squatting 600 pounds, but did you know he's already starting training camp on the PUP list? What this means is that for the remainder of training camp until we find out otherwise, Nick Chubb cannot participate in practices with the team. He can use the team facilities and still work out as if he was a member of the team, but he is not in the practices taking snaps and getting reps. But the PUP list is not why we're saying that Nick Chubb is a red flag this year, because you could be taken off the PUP list at any time before the final roster cuts, but if he is still on the PUP list after the Browns make their final roster cuts, that would mean that Nick Chubb has to miss at least the first 4 weeks of the season. Red flag. So there is a chance that Nick Chubb can be back and play for week 1, but let's take a more realistic approach, as Nick Chubb tore his ACL and underwent 2 different surgeries, with the second surgery being in November of 2023, despite him tearing his ACL in week 2 of the 2023 season. This ACL injury that he suffered in the regular season last year, a ACL ligament that he's already damaged in college while he was at Georgia, which is why his draft stock fell when he was being drafted to begin with coming into the league. And let's not forget, the Cleveland Browns have a capable running back in Jerome Ford. No, Jerome Ford is not the same skill and talent that Nick Chubb is when fully healthy, but there's no reason for the Cleveland Browns organization to want to rush back Nick Chubb if they already have somebody who is competent to do the job, as we saw in 2023. Now let's play best case scenario. Let's say Nick Chubb is ready for week 1. Let's use the same parameters as last year with the Jets when bringing back Breece Hall from injury. Breece Hall played every game, but Breece Hall did not get activated or really acclimated into this offense until about week 5. So it took 5 weeks for Breece Hall to get going. But yes, he was the RB2 and was phenomenal. By taking Nick Chubb and thinking you're getting a discount, even though this is another ACL injury, surgery, and recovery that Nick Chubb has to go through on the same knee, it's possible, also considering his age, Nick Chubb, that it might take a little longer for Nick Chubb to get back to the Nick Chubb we know and love and we drafted in the first 2 rounds of fantasy for I don't know how many years in a row. But again, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt if you're a Nick Chubb truther this year. So let's say he comes back from his ACL surgery, fully recovered, isn't on the PUP list, and gets back to his normal self in week 3. Now, Jerome Ford is not going anywhere from week 3 on, even if Nick Chubb is fully healthy. Jerome Ford is not going to become an obsolete piece of the Browns offense. Without even considering what could go wrong as the season goes on, giving out best case scenarios, it's still not a pretty scenario. And yes, that is baked into Nick Chubb's ADP currently. That's why he's going so late in fantasy football drafts and specifically on Underdog. Jerome Ford is still a good running back. He's definitely not better than Nick Chubb. To think that the volume is going to just disappear for Jerome Ford, I can't see that happening. I would say Nick Chubb is a red flag, even if everything goes perfectly right for him. Next on the list, we have rookie running back for the Carolina Panthers, Jonathan Brooks, who is the next red flag that we should be avoiding in fantasy football this year. When doing my dynasty evaluation, rookie evaluating of who's coming into the league, I obviously knew about his ACL injury that he suffered in college last year, but I still felt pretty comfortable that this was the most talented back. But now with Jonathan Brooks starting on the PUP list, and thinking about the possible scenarios of what this could mean, because he also has an equal counterpart in Chubb Hubbard, who is to say that given that Jonathan Brooks is going to start training camp on the PUP list, that he can get back to himself in week 1. And if he is not on the PUP list and ready for week 1, who's to say that he will get a big bulk of the carries to start the season? Now, I totally understand the logic of, who cares if he's not going to play the first 3 games if I'm going to get the other 14 games at a high level or high volume. But I would argue to that, your best case scenario is that you're going to miss just 3 to 4 games, and it's costing you an RB25 price tag on Underdog. And that's your best case scenario now, is that he starts the season healthy but doesn't really become the starter until early in the season, around week 3, week 4. In a similar situation to Breece Hall's injury, I'm bringing it up again, in 2022 when he tore his ACL in week 7, Jonathan Brooks suffered his injury around the same time in November. So if we used a more realistic approach or realistic model, week 5 would be that time where he gets acclimated. But unlike the Breece Hall situation in 2023, there is a counterpart in Carolina, as I mentioned, in Chubb Hubbard, that, no, he's probably not better fully healthy than Jonathan Brooks, but they trust him enough to give him the ball. They're going to give him opportunities if Brooks is not fully healthy. So if the best case scenario, if both these guys are healthy, is a 50-50 split or a 60-40 split in the favor of Jonathan Brooks, it's not really a value if you're going to have to pay that RB25 price tag to get him. I could very well see Chubb Hubbard being a thorn in your side if you're a Jonathan Brooks owner. And that's what makes me believe that Jonathan Brooks is a red flag. And last but not least, this may come to the surprise of many of you, but my final red flag running back this year is Zamir White of the Las Vegas Raiders. In order to understand why I believe that Zamir White is a red flag in 2024, let's discuss Josh Jacobs' season in 2023. When looking at Josh Jacobs' 2023 season in totality, he played 14 games and missed the last 4, but overall for the season and his snap count percentage, he was at 76% of the snaps when he did play, which was good for 5th amongst all running backs. But all of that time in those 14 games only led to about 800 rushing yards and 6 touchdowns, which isn't that impressive. And considering that he played the 5th most amount of snaps if you consider snap count percentage, Josh Jacobs finished as RB18. So where you drafted him and where he ended up last year felt a bit disappointing if you were a Jacobs owner. Now keep that 76% number in the back of your mind as we talk about Zamir White and how good he was in the last 4 games of the season and how everyone felt like this is the guy that's going to pop next year in 2024. That was that recency bias, that recency feeling that we had about him. Zamir White looked incredible in those last 4 games of the season where he was the starter. But unlike Jacobs, Zamir White in those games had a 68% snap share percentage. So they clearly didn't trust him nearly as enough as they wanted to with Jacobs. But again, all of these opportunities that both of these guys had led to minimal production in fantasy football. Zamir White in those 4 games where he was phenomenal to most of us, and don't get me wrong, I thought he was very, very good. He went off in those last 4 weeks. But he had 1 total touchdown in those 4 weeks. Fantasy football is about scoring touchdowns. If you are getting the opportunity and you're getting the volume and it's not leading to the production, what good are you? Volume and workload that Zamir White is going to get is the reason why he's as high as RB28 on Underdog, plus given his age and the small sample size that we've seen of his skill set. It seems that the Vegas Raiders will probably have similar productivity at running the football this year, with the Vegas Raiders projected to have the 2nd most difficult schedule for the running back position, and giving their stats last season, ranked 23rd out of 32 teams in rushing yards and ranked 22nd in rushing touchdowns. The volume and the opportunities will be there, But you can find better running back situations than this one here in Las Vegas. It's pretty normal for the fantasy football community to just anoint random people to take that next level up in their careers. Like, for example, last year we saw Chris Olave and Drake London were projected to take that step forward, and it really didn't work out that way, even though nothing in their game in the season prior showed us that the elite breakout season was coming. There's really nothing to base the elite breakout of Zamir White in front of us. There's no physical evidence other than a small sample size of just 4 games. So for that, I have to give the advice of Zamir White is simply a red flag. This is simply somebody that we're trying to anoint to be at the next level before he even gets to the next level. But that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching if you stuck around this long. I feel like I kind of robbed you guys of a better video because it's not as long as my other videos. But nonetheless, this information still feels just as important as any other video to me. And that's why I decided to sit down and record this one. If you like fantasy football content like this, feel free to hit the like button. It goes a long way in getting my videos out to other fantasy football enthusiasts or viewers, and it would mean the absolute world to me if you could just take a few seconds to just hit the like button for me. But that's all I have for you guys today. My name is Turtle. I'm signing out. Peace.